Welcome to What's Trending, the show where we take a look at what's been going on online. With me this week is Matthew Russell-Jones. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. This is fun and exciting.
It
and
is.
a nice week to do it in, I feel.
I feel like there's been a lot going on this week, so let's jump straight in. Right, the first story I want to get to this week is the Devil Wears Prada 2 trailer. So we already had like a little teaser that dropped before, and I think we covered it on the show actually. And now the second one is out. And I actually saw a post the other day, which I haven't fact checked, so don't hold me to it. But apparently it's like the most watched trailer of the 21st century or something like that. Like people have loved it and watched it a few times, myself included. And I think it probably says something about where we are as a society right now, which is, you know what? Let's just have some damn fun.
Yes.
Let's revisit some characters. What did you think of it?
I didn't know what to expect. I mean, firstly, saying that it's been the most viewed trailer is fascinating because I believe the Michael Jackson film trailer broke the record. So that's obviously beaten that in the space of a month as well. I didn't know what to expect because it's such a good film with such an amazing cast. And even though some people would maybe call it a bit of a popcorn movie, the first one, it has such class about it because of who's in it and the way it's written. But I was like, oh, I can see where this can go because the characters are just so good and we love them so much. So, I mean, I don't want to give the trailer away if anyone's seen it, but the whole thing, Miranda Priestley just fobbing her off like she'd never met her before, I just thought was genius. And that made me excited to see the second one and go, oh, this actually could be really good. Because sequels are tough, right? Especially when they are such iconic first films.
I think this is the thing, and it says a lot about the kind of culture we live in, right? Because reboots and remakes, they're huge, and they have been for sort of the last, I would say, sort of like 5 to 10 years, actually. If like, oh, this show or movie was epic in the 90s, let's bring it back. And usually falling on its face, you know, I'm thinking of And Just Like That, After Sex in the City.
Yeah.
Some of the other just didn't really work. The only good one I've ever seen, honestly, I don't know if you're a Star Trek fan, but they did Star Trek Picard, and in the third season they brought back the original cast of Star Trek The Next Generation. And I was someone that had seen bits of The Next Generation when I was growing up, but didn't know all of the characters by name.
Yeah.
But watch that and thought it was so good that I then went back and watched the whole of The Next Generation. That's what you kind of want to bring in other fans. But I think you've got to think, now this original film came out in 2006, I believe. Like the world was different. And I think we both grew up in a very different world. I remember Channel 5 launching. So for a period of my
Spice
life,
Girls.
yeah, I remember there only being 4 or 5 channels. Which is wild when you think of how many channels there are today, especially if you include sort of YouTube channels. Like everyone can pretty much watch whatever they want, whenever they want. So we don't have those big cultural moments as much anymore. I think it would be fascinating. I'd love to have on this podcast like someone from like Coronation Street from the 90s that's kind of been on it when it was literally one of only 4 things you could watch every evening to now where it's like obviously it's sort of their ratings are probably not very high. But I think it just shows a lot of how far we've come and how, you know, we're probably not going to get massive moments like that ever again where everyone saw the film or everyone saw the TV show because we all are splintered in what we're watching and YouTube and TikTok take up so much of our time. So it's always I understand why they want to revisit these characters because it's like, oh, well, it was a hugely successful film or TV show back then. So could it do the same now? But I don't know. What do you think? I feel like they always struggle to, but I don't think this trailer has.
Well, coming from the acting world myself, one point I will make, and you talking about Picard, I actually haven't seen the third season, but I've seen the other 2, and I was similar. I wasn't a massive Star Trek fan. And I think all these Star Trek reboots have really added like a layer of class to Star Trek. So I agree with you. But I think a lot of it is to do with who is involved in the project. Meryl Streep is such an esteemed actress, and Anne Hathaway, and Emily Blunt, and Stanley Tucci. They don't need to do this film. So they were only going to be attached to it, I think, if they read it and the script was good and they thought it was right. And I believe the same for Patrick Stewart. In Picard, he's such an esteemed, experienced actor. There's probably no way he was going to do that project if he didn't believe what they were doing with it was good. So I really think the success of these things and them working comes down to the creative team and the actors and not just throwing it out. Like, obviously, you know, we had a new Jurassic Park this year, and I don't believe critically or commercially it was that much of a success, because maybe they're just sometimes pulling these things out too far. They're even rebooting Buffy. I don't know if you've heard about this,
I have, but
which is
again, that gives me vibes of she always said she'd never do it, so it must be pretty good if she's going to do it.
exactly. And I think it's that. And then obviously Scream 7 is about to come out, which is just where, and I think it probably will be quite good because Kevin Williamson, who wrote the original, is directing it. And I'm being quite impressed. And if you watch the Scream films, by the more later films, I never thought I'd get to a 7th film and be like still interested.
Well, it's
So,
interesting, isn't it? And I think to sort of what you say, um, the it's about the actors wanting to return and having a high bar for, well, if I'm going to step into that role again, it better damn well be good, and the creative roles too. But I would say that's probably not always a guarantee. Like I said, with And Just Like That, just didn't hit the right notes, and I
no,
wonder if sometimes, so I know, say something like a Sex and the City for an example, it obviously had tones of, oh, it was dated, you couldn't say that now, she actually wasn't a very nice person, and maybe sort of trying to overcorrect the mistakes of the past didn't really
yeah,
work. Whereas I think when something really understands what it is, what the appeal is, and how to sort of lightly blend it with modern day, that seems to be the best way to go.
absolutely, yeah. I mean, I've gone back and started to rewatch Sex and the City from the beginning. I hate to say it, to slightly erase the memory of And Just Like That. And it's fascinating watching that back, actually talking about that and going, God, she was smoking and she was stalking her exes, like ex-wives, but it's more true to who people are. And for me, I think as much as I did enjoy And Just Like That, I didn't not enjoy it, and I watched it all. You can't try and be too perfect. We all relate to humanity, right? And us making mistakes. So
Well, we're going to
yeah,
come
I
on
think
to in a little bit talking about
yes,
celebrities and their high moral bar. So we'll sort of
yes,
revisit that then. But what I would say with And Just Like That, I think to your point, if you fell in love with a character because they were imperfect, trying to then make them perfect
yeah,
is not going to work. But also, you've then got to balance, well, you're picking up a story 20 years later, people are going to have moved on. Um,
yeah,
yeah, I didn't like And Just Like That, I've got to be honest. And my whole, this is what they should have done, is that rather than kill off Big, he should have been arrested for embezzlement. And she should have basically been forced to go back to her old apartment and start writing a column again because she has no money. So make her poor again.
yes.
And then
That's, I
maybe
mean,
that,
that's actually genius. Yeah.
right? So she's back in her old apartment. She's poor. She's got to write. But then I think what would have been good is then you cancel her. So a Shay Diaz character finds her articles from the 90s and says, did you really say this about bisexual people? And so then she's cancelled. And so then you've got to deal with her being poor and cancelled, and rebuilding. And that would to
Yeah.
me would have been a smarter way to go than killing off her
I mean,
husband and
I think
just
that's cheap. I think you need to go and pitch that to
tell
Michael
them.
Patrick King, because I was in on that. I was like, yeah, it's hard, isn't it? I know, obviously, Cynthia Nixon, who I love as a person, and she's very outspoken, obviously felt she wanted Miranda to have that journey of her bisexuality and then becoming gay, because that is her truth in real life. But it's hard sometimes then to mix your truth with a character that isn't you. And I think that's why that didn't vibe. I think the only person that stayed very similar was Charlotte
Mm.
as a character. And the new characters I loved were great. Obviously, it was quite obvious they were put there for diversity purposes, and there's nothing wrong with that as long as they do it in the correct way and it
Yeah.
doesn't feel forced. So those people and those actors don't feel like they're being used just to tick a box, which
I
can
really
be
liked
a problem.
LTW, but in that final season, she just didn't even speak to the other character. She was just having her own subplot,
Yeah.
like the whole time. It's like,
Yeah.
what? She's not even involved in anything. This
Yeah.
is wild.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
What's just finished on and just like quickly is fascinating is they did that big post as we decided that it would be perfect to end here. And we all know that's not true. We all know that they thought they were going to get another season and they just had to say that. And I feel that's what was such a shame about it, is it felt so open-ended, because clearly they thought they were probably going to get another season and wrap it up. But that's
well, and
life.
that's, I guess, the sad thing. If you think, like, coming back sort of to to The Devil Wears Prada too. Like, you know, something like Sex and the City ended on a massive high with a series. They
Mm.
then came back and did a film, which was, you know, universally people loved it. They then rolled the dice again and did a second film, which got panned, and then left
Yeah.
it for a decade or so. And then we're like, right, we're coming back and we're going to do it as a series again and just ruin the legacy. So as much as I do like seeing some of these characters come back out and seeing them interact in the modern world, you do risk your legacy. You know,
Yeah.
Friends famously never has come back, never did a film,
Yeah.
never did a
It was
Christmas
genius.
special.
Genius to not do that. Yeah.
It was like, that's it, that's done. I don't know. I guess we have to see the film to see whether Devil Wears Prada 2 has got it right or wrong. But I would say from that trailer alone, I feel like they've definitely probably got the right story and everyone seems on point. You know, I was like, no one missed a beat in that trailer, did
No.
they?
No, not at all. And it's good that they've kept Miranda Priestley that hard, stern person. They haven't softened her, because they so easily could have done that. And that wouldn't have worked, because that's not why we loved her.
I think it will also be interesting to see a character like that navigating the new media landscape. As I say, this was a 2006 film where, you know, people did still buy magazines. I haven't brought a magazine unless I was in it in the last like 10 years.
Yeah.
I do have some magazines, but it's because I was in them. Like, but other than that, like, you know, I think it'll be interesting to see how someone that's really built their legacy somewhere now adapts to, actually, it's the Instagram account that you need to be focusing on. Like, I'm genuinely interested from almost a business
That's really
sense.
interesting. Very true. Very true. Yeah. So, and I haven't actually, I think maybe one of the reasons they know that there was hunger for it as well, and I haven't seen it yet, is the musical, because I
Yeah.
didn't know how the musical was going to be, but it's still on, and it's been on for over a year. And that is a hard thing to do in itself, to keep a show on just for a year in the West End. So maybe that has just shown what the appeal is for it.
Yeah, 100%. I will
Yeah.
say, just before we move off this topic, a lot of people have watched this trailer and have said they're worried that Miranda has got Alzheimer's or dementia. Because she doesn't remember Andy. And I was like, that is such a weird take to get from that. And I just thought that was just one person saying it, but I have seen on my feeds people saying this and a few articles on it. I'm like, no,
Wow.
surely it's a power move. She's pretending she doesn't remember her because she was so unimportant and the events of the first film were so meaningless to her. They just got out of her mind. I don't know.
Interesting.
What did you think? I did not get that at all.
I never thought that. I thought either she genuinely is that wrapped up in her work that she's forgotten her, or she's doing it as a power move. I think the Alzheimer's thing would actually, if it's done well, and I hope that hasn't ruined it for me, would be really probably very moving. And a great way to go, because it's reality. Yeah, again, it's reality, and it's something people face for everyone, and it can happen to anyone.
Maybe,
Ooh,
but
it'd
then I
be
might
heavy,
leave
though.
it feeling sad and heavy. And the
Yes.
reason I think people like it is because it's light and it's bitchy and it's Prada and it's like consumerism and just like silliness. Like, nothing they're going to cover should really matter. You know what I mean? They're not dealing with any heavy topics. So I kind of hope they don't go that way. And
Yeah.
my read on it is she's pretending not to know them, and sort of in the second or third half of the film, she's going to be like,
She'll
of
be
course
like,
I
"Of
remember
course
you,
I do."
Andrea.
Yes.
You were my greatest disappointment. Or, you know, I hired you just because I needed to speak to Emily and it threw her off kilter or something like that. It's going to be like part of a bigger plan.
Yeah.
I can't imagine she just doesn't remember her. But I was thinking to myself, you know, I left uni like 15 years ago now, maybe more. No, probably about 15. And I remember like one of the first few jobs I had where I wasn't there very long. So I can't remember in the first film how long it all is set over, maybe a couple of months. But I was like, if I ran into those people now, I'm not sure I'd remember what they looked like because I was only there a month or so.
True, but I think the whole point is that it was so impactful for all of them, that period, wasn't it? Even if Miranda, maybe not for Miranda, but for the other two.
Yeah.
I think it was like a biggest learning curve. It's like when you have one of the things about the film is when you have a really good job and you get taught very well, you take those skills with you for the rest of
Yeah.
your life into every job, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
One final thing before we move off this. I got to say, when was the last time you saw the first film? Have you seen it recently?
No. I mean, you always see clips of it. I love the clip about the blue sweater. Because I work in fashion now as well, and like vintage clothing. I have such respect now for people that do fashion at that level, because it is true that He would just see a blue sweater and this and that. But the work that goes into it and finding those things, for me, it's my favorite bit of the whole film is when she lectures her about that blue sweater.
Well, do you know what is really weird? So I rewatched it probably a few years ago. And it's so weird. I had a completely different take than I did when I probably watched it when it came out. And I was like, you know what? She's rude. Like, she is rude. She is like gotten a job, like at the top of like literally you fall into like the top place you could probably go in fashion, and you're walking around being like shallow people. Like, none of this is serious. Like, if I in my job or any of the
Yeah.
jobs I had, like say it's podcasting, say I had someone in here helping me with the podcast and was like sniggering at me, like fretting about which question to ask a guest or which topic to cover, I'd be like, well, you get out then. Like, if you don't want to take it seriously, get out. So I do like watching it back as an adult who's actually been in the workplace now rather than in 2006 when I was at school. I'm like, she is rude. I'd be a bitch to her too.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, I think I was quite sassy when I was young, and I think in a few jobs I probably said a few things that were quite rude to people that were running the business. So yeah, again, I can relate.
Right, let's move on to the next
Okay.
story. Right. The next story is aliens. So there was an exclusive piece out this week that basically said that a British filmmaker has claimed that President Donald Trump is preparing to deliver a major speech on unidentified flying objects and basically say, yeah, we've recovered things that weren't made on this earth, which is wild. I can't believe that wasn't a bigger story picked up more widely. And it follows this sort of slow drip feed trend we've had over, I'd say, like the last almost 10 years. I think there was a big article in the US that came out in 2019 that basically people went on record of saying, yeah, we've recovered technology that was not made on this planet. It was like, well, what do you mean? Where was it made? And they never really said anything else. It was sort of like, we'll just leave that bob here. Do you think aliens have visited? Do you think the human race could handle that knowledge? What do you think?
I am never going to say aliens are not real, because it's just that very simple thing. I'm quite cynical, but I try to be quite open about stuff still. If we exist, aliens can exist. Whether they've visited our universe, solar system, I don't know. It's a hard one because I'm quite like, until I see the proof or that, I'm never going to say definitely, or I'm never going to say absolutely no. I'm more on the side of maybe not, because I like to see the evidence of things. What I find interesting about it, and what I was thinking about it, is the American government has been very clever in this term of every time something big is happening, they've got another big story. So with all that's happening in the US at the minute, if things really got even more out of hand, wouldn't that be a good time to drop this information if it is true? Because it would completely distract as well, whether it's true or not. What I find interesting is why is it only the USA that has this information when there's a whole world?
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? That's what I was just thinking. Like, we never hear about an Area 51 in Russia or in China or in South America or in the UK. It seems just very USA focused. So yeah, until I see the proof, not sure.
Yeah. No, it's a very you're totally right. I mean, it's a million questions, right? Of
Yeah.
I mean, I know that there's been a lot of other stories of UFO crashes and stuff like that around the world. I think that it's just we speak English, the Americans speak English, so we just know more about theirs than we do some of the others. Like, I've actually watched a lot of documentaries, and it's, you know, countries where we maybe didn't speak the language, so their sort of cultural moments haven't cut through as much as they have over here. Like, you know, we in the UK we've had like the Rendlesham Forest incident, stuff like that. So there's definitely been things happened all around the world. But you're absolutely right. And my joke always is, how is it that these beings can travel millions of light years, but they always somehow struggle in the terrain over like Texas? And why have they traveled that far just to like stick a probe up some farmer's bum than come and actually speak to the or whatever? I mean, you know, I'm joking sort of with some of that. I'm definitely like you in the sense of, look, they say that there are more stars in the universe than grains of sand on the earth. So just sheer probability there is going to be other planets out there that have life, just because you've got so much probability for it to happen. But then you sort of start chopping down the list, right? So, okay, so of those, which ones would have life that has intelligence on it? You know, which ones of those would survive long enough to be intelligent enough to get off their planet? Of those ones that are intelligent enough to get off their planet, would they be able to come this far to come and visit us? If they could travel the entire universe, would we be that interested? You know, it's like you sort of then that you start with massive potential,
Yeah.
but you get down and down and down. I certainly would. I certainly think it's a potential thing. I also, and this is, I guess, the big question, like, would it really change my life? I would sort of say not. I actually think, in a weird way, if the government, whichever government came out and said, look, just to let you know, we have been contacted by other civilizations, there have been crashes, you know, it's been going on for hundreds of years, thousands of years. It just is what it is. I would actually maybe feel a little bit better about that. It's much better than the government saying we don't know anything and then a massive spaceship hovering over Downing Street. It's like, oh God, is this it?
Yeah.
I mean, I do feel like, in a weird way, I feel like our generation's been through so much with like pandemics, recessions. It's like, oh well, we may as well have an alien invasion too. Why not? But I kind of feel like if they came out and said that, it'd be like, well, clearly they haven't come to do us harm because we're all still here. So whatever. Like, I obviously I'd have questions, but I wouldn't sort of immediately run to the supermarket and start stockpiling like toilet paper. I'd be like, okay,
No.
well, all right then. Sounds like they've been coming for a while. Do we know what they want, or you know, is it one of those things where actually they're meant to just come and like observe us and not really interact, but they've just had a couple of casualties, and you know, those were accidents. I don't know that it would be interesting. I'd be very interested in it, but it wouldn't panic me. How would you react if you, after recording this podcast, flip on the news, Donald Trump's there at his podium saying, you know what, guys, they've said it's the most beautiful White House they've seen in all the galaxy. It's here. They said I'm the best man in the entire galaxy they've ever met. Like, what would you think?
I mean, honestly, if Donald Trump said it, I probably still wouldn't believe it. And I'm not even kidding. I would be like, that man will do anything for attention and this. And if his right hand, left hand people did that, I wouldn't personally believe it. But I'm like you, it wouldn't massively affect my life. I mean, you're always going to have those friends that go, I told you they were real. And it'd be like, okay. And it's just such good points you made there. Like, if these civilizations have that technology to travel that far, because it's so far, isn't it, that they've found anywhere that could harbor potential life, well, in our form, they've either come here and gone, oh God, they're a bit rubbish, aren't they? Look at what they've done. Let's leave them here. Loads of ships to have crashed here with the size of the universe galaxy in infinity. It seems unlikely that many ships would crash here. Right. Yeah, I don't think if we're not that much of a threat to other lands, because if they can travel that far, why on earth would they be scared of us? Because their technology advanced. And also, if they need somewhere to live, like say their planet is dying, this planet is just too overpopulated. Even if they killed everyone, I think how long that's going to take to clear up.
Well, I get what you're saying. I just can't see a civilization being so technologically advanced that they can travel the galaxy needing anything from us. Like, clearly, if you've come all this way, you've figured out how to have a sustainable source of food and nutrition, you've got a roof over your head, you clearly have got fuel to power your ship. Like, what could you possibly need from us? Like, so,
absolutely.
I guess it was like people probably going on safari. Like, oh, let's go and have a little look at these weird animals and try not get involved. But eventually a car crashes and you're like, whoops.
Yeah. And a point about just the human race, like, we are an intelligent race. Like, it's amazing what we've done. My dad's an archaeologist as well. So which is such an amazing thing to have and have that. Yeah. And his surname is Jones, not kidding.
Wow.
And that perspective of having someone in my life that just knows the history of the world, and he just always says, like, Romans were so intelligent, what they created, like the Egyptians. There's all those, I don't know if you've heard that theory that the Egyptians were actually like aliens because it was just impossible that they could have built those pyramids and the way they sit with where the sun hits. But what I think about that stuff is these people had so much time on their hands. They didn't have phones, they didn't have all this technology distracting them. They barely had a lot of books. So think of all the time they had in their minds to expand and think and just work those things out. And the pyramids was, say, built, I don't know if it was hundreds or thousands of years. It was just this information passed down. And I sometimes think we don't give ourselves enough credit for what we have the potential to do. Unfortunately, then we can take that too far with technology and obviously bombs and things that do not only benefit certain people in the world. So I think I have that perspective as well. And that thing about David Attenborough said, David Attenborough says he's not that interested in space. I love space. I think it's fascinating because he says, look at our planet. It's amazing and we don't explore it enough. And is that not enough for you? And I always think that's a really interesting point as well.
Yeah. Right. Let's move on to the next story. Right. Next story is Nancy Guthrie. So I don't know if you've been following this. I have actually been following this quite closely. So this is basically, there's a TV anchor in America, Savannah Guthrie, and her mom has gone missing. And so obviously there's sort of that connection with celebrity. Now, the mom, I think, is 84 years old. And basically, I think she was out with her daughters the night before. She got dropped off back at the house. And then something happened to her at around 2 a.m. and she's missing. She's 84 years old, missing, gone. No one can find her. I think it's just it's interesting to me that and have you heard of the story?
You put me onto it, so I was reading about it last night and reading all the updates. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so it's happened in America, so this has definitely fascinated people. I just wonder, well, there's a couple of things. One, I think I want to talk about is the fascination with this woman being missing. Now, obviously, anyone being missing is a tragedy, and of course, has to have the complete focus of the local law enforcement. But the fact that this has become a bit of a global story of this woman, and I'm not being disrespectful here. It's like there are a lot of kids missing in this country. Like there's a lot of people missing. So why is it this one person has really captured the attention? Obviously, in this country, we'd all remember Madeleine McCann going missing, and that's gone on for like 20 years of focus on that. Obviously, this woman there, is it the connection with, the public are aware of her daughter? And that's sort of the in of why people are so fascinated by us? Or is it just that we like a mystery? Why do you think it's captured people's attention so much?
I think we are, as human beings, on the whole, obsessed with mysteries and things that we can't explain and that we don't know, which is why thrillers and TV shows and films are made about it. But I absolutely think where anyone is involved that has not celebrity, but a public facing job where they're well known, it always, on the whole, gets more interest. There's no way if she didn't do her job, the daughter, that this would have had as much traction. And maybe, she's using that to her advantage to help find her mum, which she should. But yeah, and it's a big point that of like all the other, why do certain people go missing take precedent over other? And I mean, I read it and at first I thought that's awful and it's really horrible when someone's older because they're a lot more helpless. And it sounded like she has been kidnapped or something has happened to her. But yeah, there's still that. I was reading it and God, and I was thinking, God, it's crazy. You still have this fascination. We just want to know what happened always. I mean, did you watch the one about the girl on the cruise ship, the Netflix series about the girl that went on a cruise ship that went missing?
No, but that sounds right up my street. I'll go and find that later.
It made me feel really weird because I've worked on 2 cruise ships in my life, but it's just fascinating because they still don't know.
Oh, God.
20 years.
I always wanted to go and work on a cruise ship. Side note, I think that would be so fun. There's other ones, isn't there? There was a news reporter in the 90s that went missing. What was her name? Jodie Truth or something like that. And literally that one is so crazy because they found her key in her car door bent and like her shoes on the floor. So she was like taken and they've never been able to find out what happened to her. Never. Wow. Like that was the last time she's ever seen. Yeah. And so I think there is mystery really gets us. I wanted to just talk to you a little bit, though, about the role of technology, because I don't think anyone's really focused on this with this particular case of Nancy Guthrie, but technology is playing a huge role. So I think to kick off, you sort of have the thing of, well, how on earth can anyone disappear these days? Like, how is that even possible? Because there's cameras everywhere, your phone's
Yeah.
tracking you, your watch is tracking you, all of that kind of stuff. In this particular case, and obviously details are a bit fuzzy as people are trying to get things confirmed, but it sounds like there were two Ring doorbell cameras, so one at the front, one at the back, and both of them are not there anymore. I think there was some confusion as to whether the police had taken them or whether they've been smashed, or it may have been that they were smashed and then the police took them. But in any event, the cameras on the house have not revealed anything. You've then got the thing of apparently her pacemaker was linked to her Apple Watch. Now, they suspect she was kidnapped at 2 a.m. because that's when the Apple Watch and the pacemaker stopped syncing. So they think she went out of range of the Bluetooth. So there's that element. But then, well, actually, let me before I go on to the next element of technology. What do you think of that? Like, do you think it's more interesting or just bizarre these days that people can go missing because, like, you couldn't even, we're assuming this woman has been kidnapped, but even if you wanted to disappear, you're going to have to use cards. You're going to have to, be on cameras. I just think it's a very hard world now to have someone just completely disappear.
Yeah, absolutely. And you think technology is the answer, and you feel it can make you feel safer, but to know that it can just still be sidetracked, and I think that's a really good point. I mean, I'm not going to go into it, but something is going on near where I live. There's a mystery going on, and it links to a business that I use, and there's been police parked outside it for a week and a half, questioning every single person that goes in and out of the building. And you just think in a busy street in Hackney how no one saw something. And that's similar, like in this modern world, there's street cameras. Oh,
Yeah.
it's quite terrifying, really, saying that, because if you think they're the things that are meant to help us and save us, but it sounds like it was probably pre-planned and orchestrated, and they knew all the technology that could have caught them, which is why
Yeah.
it was done. And I mean, we still don't know whether it was done because of this reporter, right? Or it was just by chance that person.
We don't know. I would say it would be very random to think that it was someone out of town that didn't know who she was, because
Yeah,
to have known that there was a Ring doorbell camera on the back and the front, I'm assuming you've been there before,
yeah,
and also to have disabled them before you made your move. It would really blow my mind if it was, just someone randomly happened upon her on chance.
yeah.
But on the role of
Do we
technology,
know?
go
Oh
on.
yeah,
No, go on.
just saying. Do we know if because you think by this point there'd be, if it was for a reason, they would want a ransom to release her, or something would be going on. But I
Yes.
just wonder, as a reporter, she said something just someone doesn't like, or uncovered something. That's what's interesting as to why. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been.
Well, I mean, a couple of things. Yes, I mean, that is a line of questioning that they're looking at, because I think when anyone that's got a public profile, something happens to someone close to them, of course they would look to see if that's a factor. I mean, if you were angry at the daughter and were taking it out on the mom, wouldn't you just take it out on the mom? Why would you take her? Where it's like you
Yeah,
had her alone in a house, you could have done anything to her. Like, obviously,
yeah,
thank God they didn't. But to me, to take her, you've got an 84-year-old that needs medication. That is a hard thing to look after an 84-year-old and keep
yeah,
them safe. Whilst you're trying to ransom them. So I don't know. I just feel like that's more of the unlikely thing, that someone's mad at her and went about it by kidnapping the mother and waiting 2 days to send a ransom note. So just coming on to that, because I really want to stick on the technology side of this. So
yeah.
we've established technology has sort of let us down in the sense of, well,
Mm,
how can anyone go missing? But I think what's very interesting is it's also making things harder, um, and worse in some cases, of if this is a ransom. So the family put out a video which was very specifically worded. Now, there have been rumors that there has been a ransom note. Depends what you think about a ransom note, because I don't know anyone that kidnaps someone and then waits 2 days to
yeah,
send the ransom note and sends it to TMZ. In any event, and there have been people arrested for sending false ones, but if there were to have been a ransom note, the language that they use in this video is something along the lines of, we would need proof that she is alive because we live in a world where images and audio can be faked. So if you think of
Yes.
any movie ever where there's someone held for ransom, usually the thing to do is you make them hold up a picture of today's paper, and that is seen as proof of life. It's like, well, they're alive, they're holding today's paper. Well, I could, have a AI make a picture of you holding today's paper in
Mm,
about 2 minutes. And even, you're recording this podcast with me now, your voice is going to be out there in the world. It would not be hard to download a bit of your voice and have AI mimic it. So even in sort of establishing a trade in a hostage negotiation now, where someone's been potentially kidnapped, just a picture of them and their voice is not enough to establish that this person is there with this
yeah.
person. So I don't know whether that means that then actually, and that's what they were hinting at, is we need, because I think they said we're ready to talk to you. So for what I'm inferring from that, and could be wrong, is what you're saying is we need to make contact with a potential kidnapper and say, if you've got her, where did we go for my third birthday? And
Yeah.
what was my first boyfriend's name? Things that only the mother or close family would know, because everything else can be faked. So it's very weird that we think
Yeah.
of technology as keeping it safe, but it's actually made, in this situation, everything much more complicated.
Yeah. I didn't even think about that. And that is terrifying. It's the truth. What I do know is that people that work in law enforcement and the government have had to catch up to AI so quickly that they now have experts that can verify quite easily videos and photos that are AI. I don't know
Yeah.
how, but I have read about that because they've had to. Because if not, there's always that terrifying thing. It just takes one video of Vladimir Putin that is AI declaring World War III, and for everyone to believe it. And that's why they've got to be so careful these days that things are checked all the time. This is why AI is terrifying, because the things you can get people to say, and we all know with the Epstein files before it was released, there was so much AI images going around of just putting every single celebrity in those situations. So we didn't know what was real and what wasn't. So I think it is terrifying, but I like to believe that they're already on that and would verify anything before it got released,
Let's
if that
hope
makes
so.
sense.
Let's hope so. And I think
Yes.
I think the FBI is involved in this situation, because I think the other thing is, wherever this happened, it seems to be like a small sleepy town where nothing ever happens. So I
Yeah.
think the sheriff and the law enforcement there are kind of like, I'm sure they're doing a very good job, but it's not something they're used to handling. And so you just think with that, what resources have they got to detect
Mm.
AI? Obviously, the FBI is involved now. But anyway,
Yeah.
obviously, we hope that Nancy is returned safe and
Yeah.
well to
Because
her family.
I, I just think the worst thing about these situations, and I know from watching that documentary about the girl that were missing on the cruise ship, is that this is 20, maybe 30 years ago now, and
Yeah.
they're still just so broken by it, and not knowing in life is just the worst thing ever. So I do hope they get
Yeah.
some
Oh, just to
answers and
not have
evidence.
closure is insane. And
Yes.
I've watched a lot of those too, as I say, with that news reporter as well. It's like, how can you not know 30 years on? And for the family to deal with not knowing, and this woman is older, okay, but if a young child is taken, just that fear, they might not be dead. What will
Mm.
be what? Have they?
Yes.
There are obviously those women kept in the basement in Cleveland for like a
Oof.
decade. So you just
Yeah.
you don't have that closure, and that must keep you awake at night as a relative, and that is terrifying. And that's what I think maybe is part of the captivation here, is like, maybe we sort of naively thought we were past this with cameras everywhere, that you could
Yeah.
even have someone go missing. Right, let's
Yeah.
move on to the next story. Next story is the Grammys.
Yes.
So you obviously are a lot more into music than I am. The story I got, because this is a show called What's Trending, it's what you actually see. And I think what I saw on my socials, maybe this tells you about my algorithms, was actually that Billie Eilish was facing a bit of a backlash for her speech at the
Yes.
Grammys, and that actually America is very polarized right now. It's all very political, but that people really didn't respond well to rich celebrities who live in mansions behind walls where nothing affects them, preaching about the way the country should be run. What was your
Mm.
take?
find it fascinating how much this is blown up, because at the time I thought, good on you for speaking up. I think people should speak up and say things. I mean, at the time, I didn't think much of it. I just thought, good on her. I wasn't that excited about the Grammys this year. And
Mm.
then for me, it turned out to be one of the best Grammys, and felt like actually all the winners were like, it was who won was very right, and it just felt great. They are becoming incredibly political, award shows, because it feels like it's the only time people can speak out. But I do get the other side of things, and you have to listen. I think there's two sides coming at her, aren't there? There's the people that are just going, basically saying, shut up, just sing, which is just a very old, quite an American stance for singers, particularly female singers speaking out. I don't know if you know about the Dixie Chicks. That was a big thing 20 years ago when
No.
they called out President Bush in Shepherd's Bush Empire. And within
Oh.
a year, in their whole band, it all come crashing down. And then they made one of the best albums ever made and won all the Grammys. So there you go. But that was
Ups and
but
downs.
these things have always happened. And then there's also the Native American side of things, and I've actually got something up here talking about it, where they've obviously said, well, if she does, we they're basically saying we actually really value her for speaking up about that, but she says that she is living on, well, like indigenous land, and says if she feels that strongly, she should open. So then it's got very complicated. Loads of right-wing news anchors have spoken up against her. Her brother's now got involved defending her. Mark Ruffalo's got involved. This is all developed in the last 24 hours. Personally, because also she's just given 10 million not long ago as well from her tour, 10 million pounds. Basically, nearly all the profit from her tour she gave to a charity. I don't think she's the right person to criticize, but I am also not Native American, and I'm not from that world, so I also understand how Native Americans must feel about that.
Yeah, it's very interesting of our time. Now, I don't really want to get into the specifics of sort of ICE and Native Americanism, because that needs a really long discussion.
Yeah.
What I want to focus on, though, is the role of celebrity and sort of how we value their opinion, because I remember a world and a time where if a celebrity said something, that was it, and it was a trend, and we really looked up to these people, idolized people. And I think there is a bit of a difference between how Americans see their celebrities and how we as Brits see them. I do think Brits have always had a bit more of a don't get too big for your boots, love, we'll bring you right down, like whereas like Americans maybe were more like, you go girl. I don't know, but I can't say I disagree with people where their principle is, about being a hypocrisy and basically saying, hold on, you live behind a wall, you've got a massive gate up, you're not worried about certain things that might go on in the community. You're literally chauffeured everywhere you go. I don't care what your opinion is on politics. And that's not talking about specifically ICE stuff or anything, just in general. Like that sentiment, I don't think I don't think it's a terrible way for the society to go, because at a time where we're talking about our politicians and they're all millionaires, they're all making money, it's all the elite, which we can't do much about at the moment, kind of saying, so we're not going to take it from celebrities too, because you're all millionaire rich elites too, and you don't know anything about how average people live and the fear of putting food on the table and having to afford your family. I do sort of get it from that perspective of, actually, I'll listen to your music because it puts me in a good mood and I quite like the clothes you're wearing, but don't preach to me about how to live, because you have absolutely no idea what it's like to live as a real person.
Yeah, it's a hard one, this, because everyone is entitled to think that, and I agree, but music is political. Like, music has always been political. People that say it's not are not realizing how clever music is as a form. That, the civil rights movement, I know you want it too political, but the civil rights movement, that one of the biggest platforms that it had was music.
Yeah.
So, music does link to politics with that. And this links right to, obviously, Bad Bunny is something we're not speaking about, is about to do the Super Bowl. And that's had this huge backlash, because He's Puerto Rican, so he is American. But then Americans are literally saying he's not American, and why is he singing in Spanish? So there's so much going on within the music world of people, talking people down. I just find it interesting that she's the one. I think a lot of people spoke out. Olivia Dean even,
Mm.
spoke, who's the British singer who won. That Billie Eilish is getting the most backlash, but Billie Eilish is from California. She's from that world. She grew up, I don't know if we could really say probably grew up in a typical working class household in America. I know the class system is very different there.
Mm.
So there is privilege, but it's that 50-50. Does she use her voice because she can, or does she just be quiet and sing it? Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, and obviously it's up to the individual. And she's faced a
yeah,
backlash, but she might be like, I don't really care. Like I said what I said, I meant what I said, and I'm happy to take the backlash. And
yeah,
if that's how she wants to, with her own free will, live her life, that's certainly, more power to you. That you say what you want. I guess for me, it was maybe, and you obviously said she's donated a lot of money to charity, but for me, it's like, this is the Grammys. It's an awards thing. So, I'm not criticizing it. Like, do what you want when you accept your award.
yeah.
I just think, is there not a better way where if you all feel this passionately about it, why don't you all come together and throw a concert and all of the proceeds from that can go to something? Or go out on the
Yeah.
street with people that are protesting, or whatever it is. It just feels like, even if you agree with them, it's like, but you're not going to put yourself in harm's way and go on a street protest, are you? You're saying it from the comfort of the Grammys, where you've got a load of
Yeah.
security, you'd be private jetted out of there, back to your house, behind your wall. Like, none of this affects you. And it's almost I can understand some people that feel that this feels performative. Like, oh, you're saying this, but
Yes.
we're the ones that are having to actually deal with it. So you could be annoyed at her from sort of both
Yeah.
political aspects.
But to play devil's advocate on that, I think I saw a video earlier today of a woman in the middle of England taking flags down
Mm,
and then feeling very scared. And the guy's trying to find out where she lived
mm,
and being like, isn't it better that these people that are safe are the ones speaking out? Because these people that are speaking out here, that are everyday people, are scared and threatened. Yeah,
mm.
it's a hard one. I mean, can I read you what her brothers replied?
Yeah,
Two
yeah,
things,
yeah.
because this is like adding to it. So her brother, I think this is a tweet, said, seeing a lot of very powerful old white men outraged at what my 24-year-old sister just said during her acceptance speech. He wrote, we can literally see your names in the Epstein files. He later
Oh, God.
reposted another thread that read, every 2 weeks, the most cartoonishly evil men on earth get mad at Billie Eilish for saying, what if we could make the world a better place? Lol. So I
Mm,
think, he's just defending it. As grateful as I am, I honestly don't feel like I need to say anything, but no one is illegal on stolen land. That's what she said.
mm.
So, hats off to her brother for sticking up to her, because they are a little duo. And then there's Kevin O'Leary, who's a business tycoon, has basically told her to shut up. And then Mark Ruffalo, the actor, has tweeted back, why don't you shut the fuck up? Sorry to swear on this if I'm not allowed to. So it's really, what I say is just from that little moment, one line, how much
Mm.
that can blow up. And does it actually benefit the big picture that she said that, or is it just creating a lot of noise that doesn't
It's
actually help?
Well, I think that you're putting your finger right on the money here. Is, I'm not here to criticize what she said or hasn't said, or even applaud it or not applaud it. It's, that's just a fact of that's what someone has said in the world. When it comes to, is it actually getting us down the right path of making things better? And that's, and maybe this is being LGBT as well, and sometimes feeling like people have been performatively supporting it, which makes things harder, especially now where the funding has dried up and it's not as popular. It's like, oh, I thought there were like 10 people behind me. Actually, there were
Mm,
only 2 all this time, because all of you were just doing it for the social clout. And maybe that's why I'm a bit more
yes.
skeptical of this. So that's just what some people talk to me, and I'm like, you know what? Sometimes I prefer to be around right wingers. I'd rather someone look me in the face and say, I can't stand you because you're bisexual. It's like, great, I know where I stand with you and I know what we need to do. Whereas when people are like nice to me about it, I'm like, oh, I don't know whether to trust you. Are you performing? Do you
Yeah.
really mean this? Like, and I think that maybe, and maybe this is what Billie Eilish is feeling in some ways. It's like, um, when you're supporting causes, sometimes there is now, I think, an element of skepticism of, are you performing and doing this to get your name in the papers? And this is not an issue to sell a record. You know what I mean? Which I'm not saying is what she's doing, but I think it's just so interesting how complicated and all the layers become with just someone
Yeah.
wanting to say whatever they want to say.
Yeah, I personally don't believe she did that, because she's got nothing coming out at the minute and she's kind of
Yeah.
finished the tour and gone quiet. So in that respect,
What
it was
can
a
I
good
do
time
with
for
my
her to
time? Yeah.
speak out about it. I suppose what's interesting, I've just remembered, is last year at the Grammys and the Brit Awards, their music shows, right? So what's the best thing to really stand up for is musicians and the rights of musicians. Last year, Chapel Rowan stood up and she did a big speech in a notebook. I don't remember this. It was actually literally in a notebook about how songwriters and singers go to sessions for free. They don't get paid. They have to pay for their own food. And then Ray spoke about it. And what that did do is it put a new thing in, that every songwriter that then goes to a session for a record label gets paid this certain amount. So that actually did make a change, because it was so linked in to the music industry and how musicians don't get paid and songwriters don't get paid, which is a huge thing. So at music award shows, what is most effective to talk about is music, maybe, because that's why we're there. So getting political about music probably has the most. Yeah. But I think that there's so much noise in America and we know what's going on. It was maybe celebrities felt like if they didn't speak up, they get called out for not speaking up. So then can they win? Because if they speak up, they get criticized. And if they don't, why didn't you say anything?
You're totally right. Look, I mean, we could have done the entire show on this alone, which is almost why I didn't cover it, because I knew it would take up so much time.
Yeah.
So I'm going to park this and we're going to move on to the next story, because we could talk about it for the whole show.
Yes. Yeah, totally.
Right. Let's move on to the next story. Right. This is our last story today, and I wanted to talk about it with you, especially with you. So for anyone that doesn't know, Matthew and I basically have a mutual friend, and then Matthew is sort of like in a show, like Janice shows up in Friends out of like Matthew always shows up where I least expect him, and like I'll be at the podcast show and you'll come up to me out of nowhere. Or the best one, I don't know if you telling this story, but you at Christmas were dressed as a Santa, and I was sort of looking after like 30 Santas. So I walk into this room full of Santas, and then one of these Santas looks at me, is like, "Lewis, how are you?" And I was like, he is real. He knows me, and I am a good boy. And like, you come over to me, I'm like, oh my God, he remembers me. And it's you. And obviously, because you're full Santa, like I didn't know it was you. Like, and the funny thing was, after we'd spoken, you then went back into the Sea of Santas, and I couldn't find you again because you were so. I kept wanting to come back over and be like, "Oh, how's the day going?" I literally was like, I don't know which one he is.
I've actually completely forgotten about that, and that's so funny. But I think we're both comedians, right? As people, and we do multiple things and multiple jobs, and I just mold, and that is so funny. Like particularly last year, we just crossed paths so many times. So
right,
yeah, hats off to Ministry of Fun on that as well. I don't mind saying this is the first year I've ever been Santa,
right,
and I was like, how am I going to look old enough to be Santa? And then I couldn't believe it. I mean, even I was convinced when I looked in the mirror.
I gotta be. You looked so much older as Santa. I don't know what it does, but it really aged you.
Yes.
Anyway, so this brings me on to this final story, which is forget quiet quitting. So we all know about quiet quitting. That's when you have a job, but you're sort of uninvested in it and you've sort of quietly quit. Apparently, job hugging is tipped as the next big trend of 2026. And basically, workers are choosing to job hug, which is staying in roles out of anxiety or uncertainty about the labor market, especially as AI has had an impact on hiring. So you're basically like saying hugging to your job when you might have naturally moved on, just because it's not the time to be moving jobs. You're obviously someone that does like millions of jobs and you just always are, freelancing, jobbing it. So what's your kind of take on people that just are like, I'm going to stay in this job even though I don't really like it because it's too trauma inducing out there to try and find a new one?
I completely understand why it's happening, because having spoken to people that are on salary jobs, of which I'm not, people are scared. And I know people that have worked in industry, say people that worked in TV and film I met recently, and they that is freelance, but then they wanted to go. One of them was going, I'm going for a head waiter job. I haven't said I haven't been a waiter in 20 years because I just need a job that I know I'm going to get paid each week because I can't be a freelancer anymore. I think it must be a thing where they know friends as well that have left a job and go, I don't want to do this anymore, I'm going to go for that. And then they can't get a job because surely this fear, as well as AI, must come from them knowing that out there, their friends can't get jobs. It's a real sign of the times with the cost of living still and fear and the way the world's going. So when you sent me this article and I looked at it, I was like, I was not surprised in any way or form that this is happening and it's becoming a thing. What worries me is some people are very unhappy in jobs and continue them. And I think your happiness and your mental health is so important still. But that's not so easy when you have kids, a family, and a mortgage, and you have to pay for things. So my fear with it, reading it, was like, oh, I hope we're not going to get even more sad as a world with that going on. Yeah, I'm not surprised with the world that's happening.
Well, I think one thing you said there that's really quite interesting is people are seeing this in their real lives, because I think sometimes can get a sense of dread from sort of reading news articles and reports about, oh, the job markets, I won't even look. But actually, as you're saying, if they're seeing their friends sort of taking the risk and then ending up not where they want to be and actually worse off than they were before, if people are seeing that in their real lives, then I think that you can understand why people are doing this. How do you personally deal with it? In the sense of, you don't have a sort of 9 to 5 PAYE job. You do a lot of things. You're always moving around and jobbing. Like, so there must still be some hope, right? Or is it about having multiple jobs and multiple income streams?
It's about, I do believe it's about happiness for me now, first, having done things for multiple years. But I'm more skilled than I maybe realized in so many jobs. Like, so people know, I work in casting sometimes. So I take auditions, I work in casting studios, I work for Ministry of Fun being Santa. I just worked at the London Toy Fair playing board games. I work for sometimes a banking company where I host meetings in Bank of America, and I have a vintage clothing company, and I'm an actor and I make music.
See?
So not actually many of them, though, have big incomes. Like, one of those jobs, I will get no work 1 month. I just know that when I'm doing what I love and I'm doing things that excite me, like podcasts like this, I have a spring in my step for the rest of the day, and that's what spurs me on. So I suppose it's just being on a path and going, yeah, I'm fine. I have in the last few years got a bit worried and gone, oh, maybe I should go and get a job. And I looked into getting teaching jobs. This is what's interesting. As a performer, we're always asked, oh, can you teach at this college? Can you teach these kids? None of that work is available anymore.
Really?
Because every single performer wants to do it. And even people that are in West End shows, I know, and in shows are doing those jobs in the day to survive. So I don't know how long I will hold on this way, but I also have spent the last few years running a freelance business. That's what I will say. And I did work about 7 days a week for a good 3 years, nearly, which nearly did make me go a bit doolally. So if you build a base that's, strong enough that will survive for a bit, I think that's how you can survive.
No, 100%. And what I would say as well is, I think the mess the economy is in is really a worry. I talked about on a previous episode having to pay a massive tax bill, which I did. So I have like a normal PAYE job, and then I do all of the other stuff like the book and the podcast and the TV and everything. And I had to pay like most of it back, like almost everything I've made. And my whole issue on that was not that I shouldn't pay tax, but the amount that I had paid, I was like, then I don't have the ability to invest in that myself. So for example, with doing this podcast, I've said this before, we would have probably recorded this in person. I would have probably taken you for lunch afterwards and expensed it back to the business. All of those kind of things where it's like, employing someone to do the editing or whatever it is. that's being taken away from people now. So now people don't have this ability to sort of say, I've got some money that I've made from a job. I'm going to invest it back into making weird socks or an event that I think is cool and hiring people. So as we get taxed more and more, the things and jobs you can do in the economy are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So I don't really see what and then you add that thing of AI is just cutting through stuff. It's like it's a very worrying time. So I'm not surprised that job hugging is going to be happening. Just before we wrap up, though, what do you think that means for employers? Because I think, within regard to the job I've had, the last 5 years have been quite good post-pandemic in the sense of, I only go into the office a few days a week. I think that there's always been a big pull for jobs to kind of show how they're looking after staff. But if that balance flips and then all of a sudden we know people don't really like to leave jobs, so actually we can take and take and take. Not that I'm accusing all companies of doing that, but do you worry that there could be a bit of a flip of a balance there between employer and employee?
I think it's going to be a lot harder for employees to keep their staff happy because, let's be honest, the longer you stay in a job, the harder it is to keep it fresh and to keep yourself happy, unless you're staircasing in the job and your job is changing. Now, I can't speak as much on the work from home aspect, even though I've done it a bit when I worked in casting. But I do think it's going to be harder for employees to keep companies happy and upbeat, despite everyone will be more gelled and know each other. Well, maybe they won't because they're working from home. But you know what I mean by that is that some people should move on when they're unhappy, and some people should either staircase in the company or find something else in the company that, makes them more happy. I do think that's the worry in those situations. I've been in workplaces, particularly as a waiter. Like, it's a really interesting job being a waiter, which I did for over 10 years, and I went through it, is people can be on their absolute high and they're so happy. And then a year later, they're utterly depressed and they drag everyone down because every little thing, like a table tipping them or not, becomes the biggest issue. And I remember saying to some people, I really think you just need to leave and move on. I know you want to stay here because of the money, but it's that thing of happiness has to come first. But as I said, that worry of, well, where's the money come from then? So that's what I think about how it will be for employees, is to how do you keep then the staff happy because keeping things fresh, new energy and new people are the key to a lot of things in life.
Yeah.
So if that's not happening.
No, it's going to be a tricky one. Well, we'll see how this story develops. Matthew, thank you so much for joining me for this episode. I've really enjoyed it. If people want to hear more from you or book you as Santa, where can they go? Where can they go and find out more?
So I'm just on the socials as myself, as at Matthew Russell Jones. I have a podcast as well, which is on a break at the minute. I've done 2 seasons, nearly 50 episodes though, called Life After Jazz Hands, at Life After Jazz Hands, which is speaking to performers through their worlds as a performer and how they navigate that, the highs and lows. And then I'm releasing new music this year, which I've not done for a while. I've been recording music, which is exciting. So as a singer, I'm under Vana Blue Music, which is VANABLU Music. I think that's enough socials I've hit you with.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Subscribe for more content.